front of that microphone from your direction. And what I ask, please, that if you are asking a question, let's make sure you make it brief, to the point, and one question only, okay? Sometimes an answer to a question can take 5 minutes, okay? Ask one question, that way the person behind you gets their chance, the person at the end of the line hopefully will get their chance as well, okay? So we're gonna move along and get this party started. You guys ready? Let me hear you yell for a minute here. Absolutely, not bad, and hopefully you're gonna yell loud in that, because without any further ado, this lovely, beautiful lady who can actually kick ass at any time she wants, Tampa Bay Comic-Con brings to you the fantabulous Linda Hamilton! Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and run this microphone.
Downhill from there. I got completely downhill.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing, Linda?
Hi, Legend. Hi, Legend. You got a front row seat.
Hi, Legend.
I want Legend up here with me.
Want Legend up here? Okay, now I taste like chicken, so be careful.
Oh, buddy. It's my little service dog for the day. Hey, buddy. Hey, it's not your first time on stage. Hi, buddy.
It's a lovely looking service dog.
I feel much better.
Did you want a chair? Sure. Okay. Oh, she's gonna stay over here.
I got a kiss, too.
Love it.
Beautiful.
He loves it. Oh, I got water for him if he's thirsty.
Hi, Linda. How have you been?
Hi.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
I missed you. I only just met you, but
I'm so single.
I didn't know how much I
I have cable and a VHS player.
Oh, and a VHS. Old school, I like it.
Yeah, old school. So we have missed you. You have been everywhere. We see you occasionally, you know, here and there and whatever. And every time we see your face on the screen, we're like, oh man, she's still beautiful.
Oh man, she got so old.
No. Suck up. We all age gracefully. Still look beautiful. All right, so before, like I said, if anybody wants to line up behind this gentleman right here when we're ready to ask questions, go for it. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask Linda basically what's going on in her life these days. What have you been doing since Beauty and the Beast?
Wow, that's a long time. Recently, I have been doing a show called Defiance.
Sure,
On the
Defiance.
Sci-Fi Channel. I love Defiance. They've killed me off, but I'm not sure that I'm really dead. I might come back with a gaping hole in my chest, I hope, because I love that job. Even though that was Toronto in the winter, so in February, it was the most brutal February they've ever had on record, and we were outside doing stunts in the snow. That snow is really hard when your head hits it. I don't know if any of you guys have tried that, you know, but snow is really hard when your head hits it.
Well, we can see it in the episodes. Tony Curran is a buddy of mine.
I love Tony.
Tony's great.
They're a great group of actors, so international, just a great group.
Yeah, he is fantastic. And Dr. Who connection, we just have for you here too. So that's
great.
fantastic. Oh, good. They're lining up. Fantastic. But you've been in Defiance.
I did Defiance.
What's next for you?
I'm not sure. I just had a really, really crappy movie fall through. You know, sometimes you just like take the money and you're like, how could this ever even be a movie? I read the script. I'm not going to name it because it all fell through anyway. They never had their finances. But I actually read the script 3 times and could not figure out the ending of my character. Like, did she become a zombie, or did the zombies take her down, or? I mean, truly, it was so unclear. And I'm like, this is not a movie. And then, of course, it didn't go. So,
wow.
So
we'll find it on DVD somewhere.
I think I'm going to just take a little while. My father just died, and I've had a couple of, it's okay, it's okay.
Sorry.
But I'm a little tired, you know. It's like, could I do do some yoga and some juicing and just kind of get myself back.
Well, I have a spare bedroom and a pool.
He's got a pool too.
Yeah. So, and cable, as you know. Okay. Hey, got a question?
Yeah. If they asked you to do the like a cameo of the Sharknado 4.
Oh, that is such an interesting question.
I love that question. Yeah, hopefully everyone heard the question. If not, they asked if she was offered a part in Sharknado 4.
Would she do it? I'd go for it.
Yeah. There's a shot gun right there. She didn't have the shot. Yeah.
It's just too irresistible.
It is.
Yeah. and we want you to come back in character, you know. You don't need a chainsaw. You're just like this young lady right here.
That's
you
right.
can come back dressed as her.
I'm going to be making fun of my role as Sarah Connor for the rest of my career. Actually, I've done 2 shows now where I actually get to say, "Come with me if you want to live." They've written that for me. You know, pretty much every guest starring part that I play from now on is going to have that line in it.
But Linda's iconic.
What can you do?
It's iconic and it's going to be passed down.
Yeah.
Generations. It's iconic. So, hi.
Hi. I have a question about your role in Defiance. You're not sure that they're going to bring you back, are you?
No, I'm not sure.
Because I was hoping there'd be like an epic...
It was talked about. That's why you didn't really see my dead body. But I think they just ran out of days. You know, they had so many stories to tell. So if we get picked up, I mean, that show is just funny. It just doesn't... It takes like a year and a half for them to pick it up for the next season, at which point you've lost your audience. You know, they just won't build momentum. But I love that show. I just think Grant Bowler is just like one of the best actors out there. I mean, he's just so solid and sexy and just good with weapons and good with people. And like, I'm a big fan of that show. So
Thank you.
we hope.
Hey, dude.
Hello. My question is, Linda, if you've seen all the other iterations of Terminator, and how do you feel about the performances by Lena Headey and Sarah Clark as Sarah Connor?
Yeah, I'm like a loser that way. I never saw Lena, and I wish I had, because I love her. I mean, I just think she's extraordinary, and I love a lot of her other work.
Have you watched Game of Thrones?
I have not. I read the books, and when I read the books, I just am not real interested in seeing them. I lived Game of Thrones in my mind for about, all 5 books. I was like waking up going, I dreamt about Game of Thrones. I mean, I think the writing is just so good. So I haven't seen it, because I just think that's what's in my imagination is just always more interesting than somebody else's rendition of it. And I haven't seen Genesis yet, but I will see it this week, and I'll have to give me your phone number and I'll call you back. Mark is very jealous, but...
Hi!
Hi, my question was about Beauty and the Beast. How did you feel about your relationship with Vincent as the show progressed?
I was frustrated. I wanted to really kind of move the characters along, and at the end of season 1 there was a supposed kiss, and they really just cut the crap out of this kiss. I mean, it was a very kind of like what everyone in the audience has been waiting for this, cataclysmic moment, this union of these 2 actors, of these 2 characters. And, the network was just, when you're doing a TV show, there's just it's so fear-based. They come up with a certain formula, and they don't want to stray to the left or right of that. They're so afraid. I remember there was a day on that show where I said, we were out on the balcony for the 100th time because Vincent never goes into Catherine's apartment, and I said, could we be drinking a pot of tea? Because we've been out here all night and it's night, and some tea would be nice. And our producer just freaked out. You're not a couple of yuppies. I'm like, it's just a pot of tea. Something different, So at the end of that first season, when the kiss was snipped out and it really was not nearly what we had shot, I was horribly disappointed. You get very invested in kind of wouldn't it be great if we were really courageous and we did that? Or wouldn't it be fun if Vincent taught Catherine to ride the subways? I wanted comedy in there too. You know, I mean, like the full life experience, the full richness of two people together. And so I was campaigning all the time to just like, can we move this along? Can we get some comedy? You know, and I think they probably hated me by the end.
Yeah, I got a little tired of the operatic, you know, every season. It's just
my head on his shoulder at the end of every episode. It's like, could my head be on the other shoulder? It's like, no, whoa, not his other shoulder. I mean, that's how it feels when you've got like the people in the tower that kind of want the same thing every week. And I'm not sure that we could have done it much longer.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Although I loved so much of it, you know, but and it's from love that I wanted to just grow it. But that's dangerous when you're doing network television.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Uh-oh. I knew there would be one.
I'll be back.
Hello. So between Terminators 1 and 2, the role of Sarah Connor was very different. Can you just describe how it was different preparing for role in one of the movies versus the other?
Great question.
Yes.
Great question.
Number one, you know, he's kind of an ingenue, really. Kind of still new in Los Angeles, and you know, that was really what I played, and that's kind of who Sarah Connor was, just an innocent that's drawn in. So there wasn't a lot of real prep. I mean, she's not a character in the first movie who knows weapons, who really knows anything. So there wasn't a lot of preparation. It's just like jump in and believe every scene and do your best work. And then the second time around, when Jim came and said, we're going to do a second one, I was like, uh-oh. Because we now had a 7-year break between the two movies, and I had a lot of time to sort of figure out where that character would have gone had she been living for 7 years with the certainty that the world was going to end and that robots were going to take over and start killing mankind. So when Jim approached me with the second one, he said there wasn't a script yet. We just got together, and I was like, you got to make her crazy. She's crazy. And then he went away and he wrote a script. And I like read the script. I was like, oh my God, she's so crazy. I need to train her. I need to know my weapons. So I drove that second one. I think we were pretty collaborative, and I just was like, we gotta just make as much of her as we possibly can, because she's had 7 years to get her game on since the last one.
Sorry about that. What about the physical transformation in those 7 years? Was that your doing, not knowing you were going to be prepared for the movie?
I didn't spend the 7 years training, but it looked like I did, didn't it? No, I actually had just had a baby, or I was like super pregnant when Jim came to me the first time, and I was like out to here with a baby, and I was like, oh. So when the script delivered, I had just had the baby and had like all this baby weight on. I was like, ugh, boy, how are we gonna get this done? But I just trained my ass off, excuse me, children, literally. 18 hours a week of physical working out, and another 18 hours a week doing weapons and training, and it was a very good time for me, actually, to do that. So, I had a 1-year-old baby when that movie started, and I looked like that. So that, I think, was a real triumph, to go, yeah, I've got a 1-year-old baby. And I was real proud. I saw Arnold the first time, and I think I ripped off my shirt pretty much and was like, Arnold, look at me! I had a running bra on or something. Arnold, I did it. And Arnold was totally on my team, let me use his gym, very generous, very proud. So, those were the days where they had just started the fat-free diet, and that was the new science was don't eat fat if you want to look ripped. And so I didn't eat fat for probably 8 months. 3 months before training and 6 months doing it. And then afterwards, all that time of not eating fat, I couldn't even tolerate fat. You know what I mean? Somebody gives you a little butter and you're like, ugh, it just had been so long. And I would never do it that way again, because it turns out your body does need fat and your brain needs fat. But those were the days, right? We were doing the best we knew how, and it was good. I mean, I remember waking up one morning, and I was like, got up and I just kind of stretched, and I was like, these aren't hips anymore, they're flanks. You know what I mean? It was so empowering. And I stayed true to it. I mean, I remember there was one day we moved to location, and so there were gift baskets from the producers wishing us well in this new location, and I ate like a tiny piece of Baby Bell cheese, this much, and I thought, I ruined the movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, you get into this total mindset, like, this much cheese was like ruinous. And that's the kind of discipline I had in those days. As you can tell, it's not quite the same for me today, but...
You look beautiful. You good?
Cool, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, man.
Hello there.
Hey.
My question is, when it comes to being in like shooting locations that are hard to work in and playing scenes that involve like very intense scenarios, are those harder to act in because of what you're subjected to, or easier to act in because it makes you like more one with the character that you're playing?
Well, the background does not always suit the characters, you know? I mean, last summer, I mean, it's always the hottest place in the world in the summer and the coldest place in the world in the winter. That's how it works out when you're acting. And I actually have a really, really good regulator, my body temperature, just like, I worked in New Mexico one summer, and it was triple digits. But it's not just like dry desert New Mexico, it's like monsoon season in August, triple digits, and then huge humidity. I mean, we had 300-pound guys that were like fainting from the heat. And after day 2, I just didn't notice it anymore. I mean, I have a great way of disciplining myself, going, it's just heat, it's just sweat. I mean, I would drink 8 bottles of water a day and never pee, and I thought, what's happening? Am I having like renal failure? But literally sweating it out. You don't even have to go to the bathroom. But you just discipline your mind and say, it's just heat, and I got a scene to do, and sometimes it's a problem when your makeup is sliding off your face, and they just have to be, you like, oh, please let me just get one more without like makeup adjustments, because you get into a certain rhythm, and you just like, let's go again, let's go again. But I think I've just done it for so long now that I ignore my own physical discomfort and just get the acting done.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Why don't you rotate that down, or you pull it off completely if you want. There you go.
In the first movie, were you scared when you saw the Terminator?
No, but I was super impressed, right? I really thought he looked great, but you know what? I had bad dreams about the Terminator for about a year afterwards. I did. I think I was a younger actress and didn't quite know how to act out all that stuff, the loss, the fear. I mean, this is a character who loses her roommate, her mother, her lover, you know, and that loss. I mean, the scene where they're putting me into the ambulance. Well, for some reason, they strapped me to a gurney and then left me alone for like 3 hours while they went and shot something else. Oh no. I don't quite know how that happened, but I sat on that gurney and wept for about 3 hours, just like release, not like, why don't they come for me? No. It was just, I mean, you bring up so much loss and grief, and unless you're a seasoned actress, you don't really know how to protect yourself from that. So somewhere, my psyche felt that I'd lost a lot of people. And I remember dreaming that the Terminator was at my parents' house, coming for me, that it was out the window. I mean, you know, for the longest time, I really felt like a lot of loss and grief. But I'm better now. I can, you know, I can do that kind of work and then go outside and laugh and make everybody else laugh and then go back in and cry. You know, I know how to do it now.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So cute. Nice question.
Hi.
Hi.
I remember when I first saw the second Terminator, I thought, wow, Sarah Connor is some kind of badass. So I was wondering if you can still do pull-ups like you did.
I'm saying yes, and that's the story.
Right now.
Every darn day I do those pull-ups. But it was great to do it in those days. And you know what? It's funny. Badass. It's like, I studied acting in New York. I went to the Strasberg Theater School and the Actors Studio, and like never in my wildest dreams would I have thought of myself as a badass. Do you know? I was going to be a Shakespearean actress, right? And you have no real control over the way your career goes, and all of a sudden people go, oh, she's good angry. And then like, oh, she's good really angry. She's good killing people. And then suddenly you're an action adventure star, and you have no idea how it happened. But I have no complaints.
Thank you so much.
Well, you were in good company, because during that time the Terminator came out, of course Aliens came out as well, and Sigourney basically broke out as a badass, so we're like, oh my God,
number
these
one.
strong women.
She really was number one.
I don't think so. I think you were number one. You had 2 movies to back
She did it first, I did it better. How I
Hey, man.
Hi, Linda. I'm Steven.
Hi, Stevie.
How are you?
Good.
I was going to ask a lot of questions they asked about you getting physically fit for that role, but like whenever, like over 20 years later, people are sort of like, I'm cut. I'm like Linda Hamilton in Terminator II still. So I think you're kind of like responsible perhaps for these Christian Bales and people who have like made it their thing to get physically fit and change the role between the first and second. So here's my question. You ready? What has been the most dangerous thing you think you've ever done on film?
Oh.
Well, I made her think. That's
you know, I started out in the early years where they really didn't look after actors. There weren't a lot of rules in place that meant, like, I mean, they would literally say, Linda, jump off that bridge, and I would, like, with no harness or anything. I mean, I dangled from things, I jumped crevasses. King Kong Lives, which I actually can't believe I said that. It's just a terrible, terrible movie, but
It's all about you.
the things that I did on that movie, and you look at it, she's not, I mean, she's a doctor, she's not a stunt woman, but I mean, we were up in the Smoky Mountains, and with slippery rock and huge crevasses, and they'd say, you need to jump from here to there, and I'd be like, okay. I mean, nobody today would even think of doing what we did in the old days. That was just like, not even on film. It was just like, you just jump over there and do that and dangle from that, and I'd be like, okay, because I was just a good sport. In the Terminator movies, the second one, I leaped through fire, which was a little scary because my hair was like this long, and it was like tinder. You know, I was like, what if my long hair catches fire? And then, you know, I don't know, there have been some really horribly uncomfortable days, like where they will turn a fire hose into a Ritter fan. Does anybody know what a Ritter fan is? It's like this huge industrial fan that has so much force. And they take a fire hose and they turn it into a Ritter fan, and then they blow that water on you. It's worse than being like knocked down with a fire hose. And when they want you to do your dialogue, you're like, because the water is pounding so hard you can't even get the words out. I remember that day, and my whole boots filling up with water all day long and slogging up the mountain and being wrapped in plastic and then coming back down and getting I got so utterly drunk that night. When I got home, I called my husband, apparently. I don't remember. I was like, who in the world did I do what I did today? I mean, he called me the next day. He goes, did you call me last night? And I was like, no. I didn't even know it was my voice. You know what I mean? Like, I was just shattered. Like, how could this be? How could it be? And there are a lot of days like that where, you know, it isn't necessarily the most dangerous, but it's like the worst. Yeah.
You still look amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome.
From a distance. I see myself now on screens only this big. I'm like, do you have a smaller phone? I like my image when it's about this big, and I can tolerate that, that's it.
Hi there.
Hey.
I was wondering when they brought you back for the second Terminator and there wasn't a script.
Yeah.
Were you afraid that it wasn't going to be as good as the first one?
No, because I knew it would be bigger.
Yeah.
You know, and bigger does not necessarily mean better. But you know, I couldn't really tell if the first movie was good or not. You know, you just get so close to it. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, I forgive Jim Cameron for everything. Because I thought it was like, wow, that man knows what he's doing. I had no idea that there would be that much heat and pace. And I really liked it. And then the audiences were really weak for it. And I remember I went, I was supposed to go to New York to do press. Nobody cared. I mean, actually, my part of the press tour was canceled because they only wanted to talk to Arnold. And then I remember seeing it in the theater with people, and it was lukewarm, and I'm like, oh, I don't think this movie is good. You know, you're so kind of at the mercy of the temperature of the day. So I had never quite decided whether Terminator 1 was good or not, so I wasn't real worried about beating it out or living up to it. But that's just because you get so close, it's just really hard to tell.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think it was new, it was innovative. There have been robot movies out there in the past or whatever, but this kind of broke ground, in my opinion, and flashing forward to the future, and that version of the future, which wasn't sure and spice and everything nice, and it was like, you know, Armageddon. That was all new, and we were taken to it. Hi.
Hello. What do you know about any plans to bring Chuck back via like Netflix or other alternative television sources?
I'm always the last to know. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm like so not plugged in to anything. So I haven't heard a thing. I mean, that would be cool, but in general, I would guess that both of those actors, Yvonne and Levi, and Zachary, have moved on to their own things, and as devoted as you are to a certain show while you're doing it, when you step back and then there's this and that, you tend to not want to go backwards. You know, I mean, I've been asked for years and years and years whether there was going to be a new Beauty, whether they were going to create a Beauty and the Beast. And as great as those days were, I just don't like to go backwards, and most of us don't, you know.
That's interesting. That's the same response that the previous guest, Freema from Doctor Who, had when they asked her if she would go back into Doctor Who. She said basically the same thing.
Yeah, it's lovely that the fans respond and want to see it again. I mean, you know, not discounting any of that, but usually for actors, or for me, I can only speak really for myself, I just don't want to play the same woman over and over and over again. I mean, after T2, I had to work really, I don't know, I wore dresses for 2 years because everybody offered me cops, dykes, and military people. I mean, that's all those were the only offers I got. I mean, I literally had to win Dante's Peak because I walked in and the director quite seriously says to me, well, I don't know, I mean, you've never played a character like this before. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, normal. And it's like, buddy, if I can play that and make it look right, I can probably play normal and make it look right. But you know, they all treat you like you're gonna walk in and chew up the scenery and arm wrestle the crew and kill them if they make a mistake. And it's like, no, I'm so normal. But, you know, it's funny, it gets in your way.
Hi. All right, so my question is, out of all the roles you played, do you have a favorite, and if you like that you enjoyed playing, and if you don't, what would be your ideal role?
Well, I think I missed the boat with comedy. I would love to do comedy, but you know, it might be a little bit late. And I have a face built for tragedy. You know, my face is built for tragedy, but the rest of me is comedy, all comedy. And I haven't really got to do enough of that. But I have played some roles that probably none of you have seen that I really treasured. One was in a movie called A Mother's Prayer, and I played a woman dying of AIDS who, based on a real character, who became an adoption agency so she could adopt her son out because she didn't have family to leave him with. And it was so gut-wrenching and amazing. I turned it down because it was in between seasons of Beauty and the Beast and I just needed a break. But then there was a strike like a writer's strike or something, and we had extra time, and I just couldn't stop thinking about this part. And I ended up going and doing it, and just having the most amazing time. But that was more like relationship with the young actor that played my son, and he was just so gifted. And by the end of this movie, we just look at each other, and it was so real. I mean, all the pain, and you know, moments where I'm trying to tell him I love him, and he's punching his bear in rage, and you know, the director saying to me, "Linda, try to do it. Don't cry." And I'm like, "I'm trying." But it just became so real and so super precious. And every once in a while, you have an amazing experience like that where I just wept saying goodbye to that boy. So that was one. I did a movie a few years back called Refuge, which isn't a great movie. It's very sort of imperfect, and the director, Mark Medoff, won a Tony for this movie that I can never remember, but I will before too long. So a Tony Award-winning writer who was directing and really didn't have the experience or the team, and he put it together with all of his students. This is the one that I did in New Mexico, but it was just the greatest script. And sometimes the greatest script does not turn into the greatest movie, but boy, what he had written for us just made it so rich. And I loved doing that part in Refuge. Very, you know, very quiet work that, you know, nobody has seen, but sometimes that's the best, you know, you get the freedom to really work your own way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, guys, we're getting close down to the end, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up a little bit. How you doing, man?
Hey, Linda, this is Zeke. You look great.
Thank you, Zeke.
I was about 10, 11 years old when T2 came out, and I saw Edward Furlong, and I want to ask you, how was it working with him? Because, you know, I've heard things to where he was, you know, kind of a bad kid, and
He wasn't a bad kid. He was a kid who had never had any real instruction or real mentoring, even by his parents. His relationship was very strained, and they found him in a Los Angeles Boys and Girls Club. I was the one, I screen tested with him, and I was like, Jim, I don't think so. Shows you what I know. I don't think he's the one. I don't see stuff going on behind his eyes. And then, you know, he was so damn good in that movie. So don't ever let me cast your movies. But he worked hard and was just absolutely great. I mean, my job is the mom, so I was like, hey, concentrate, focus. But he has an incredible, uncanny natural talent. So I enjoyed that. I mean, just generally enjoyed the Terminators a lot.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You can go ahead and pull that mic off for him if you want. Yeah, this is snatch. Yeah, ready?
Oh, do it.
You can do it. We've already hugged. Come on, I know you.
Can you do your best Arnold Schwarzenegger impression?
Oh, great question. Great question, young man. I want to hear it too.
Tom, you want to live?
No.
That didn't sound like
I can't do it. I can't do it. It's very much in. See, it's not.
You're doing good. More inflection.
I can't do it. I tried. I'll come back next year and I'll really impress you.
She'll be back.
Hello.
Hi.
It seems as of late there's been some really great, well-rounded female characters coming out, especially in the sci-fi and fantasy genres. And since you played one of the pioneering, iconic characters, I wondered if you would just speak about that a little bit. Your thoughts?
Oh, well, we're all for strong women. I mean, if I had the tiniest part to do with that, that makes me happy. I mean, it's not what I set out to do. I mean, it's not like you set out saying, I'm going to change the world, the attitudes towards women. Women can be strong. I think that the more the merrier, that definitely there are a lot of high-value characters out there right now, especially in sci-fi. But, you know, never enough, right? I mean, full-blooded female, you know, with not just strength, but strength and vulnerability. I think that I probably helped my case by accident because Jim wanted me to cut my hair off at the beginning when I get ready to go out and do battle with the term when I'm getting out of the mental hospital. He had me, in the scene he had it written that she takes scissors and cuts off her hair. And it wasn't a vanity of mine per se, but I just thought, I don't think that we need that. What if I just pull it back? I mean, right, if you have long hair, then it's vulnerable, right? Because people can use it against you. So I was like, what if we just pull it back? And I think that salvaged that. If I had cut my hair off and butched it, I don't think that the world would have responded nearly as strongly, because something about the long hair just feminized that muscle and allowed it to be a complete woman as opposed to a woman trying to look like a guy. So it was kind of an accident, but I really think that made a huge difference. That because Demi Moore then did G.I. Jane and butched everything off, you know, and the world didn't respond to that. It's like the strength and the femininity working together, and so lucky accident.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, you too.
My question is, Terminator 1, Terminator 2, all Terminators, they're based on the concept of advanced technology or advances in AI. And so, lately, you know, in the news and stuff, you hear stories about Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking and whatnot warning about the advances of AI. And I'm just wondering, when you hear this stuff, do you ever raise an eyebrow?
Both eyebrows. You know what? Technology and I still do not work together very well. I mean it. I swear to you, I have some sort of weird electromagnetic thing where I can download 3 GPS programs and not one of them will get me from here to a strange location. Like last week, I mean, really, it is ridiculous that my GPS, I mean, the other day trying to find a new doctor's office, I mean, I had the doctor's office, I was just trying to get there. And my GPS had me do probably 12 U-turns. 0.2 miles, make a U-turn. And then I would make a U-turn. It was like, in 0.7 miles, make a U-turn. And it is truly like that. I mean, if I'm in your car, your GPS won't work. So I hate all of it. I hate all of it. I wouldn't have lamps in my house, but I'm a reader, so I need to read by light. But I am super, super low tech, and I love it. And I just basically go, when the grid goes down, man, I'm gonna be okay.
That's great. I'm just not a fan of showing up in the future naked. I mean, this is not what the people in the future want to see.
Not naked anymore, dude.
You mentioned earlier Sigourney Weaver's work in Aliens and the character of Ellen Ripley, who has a lot in common with Sarah Connor in being fierce and violent and a little bit crazy and also a mother.
Yes.
And I wondered if you feel like those movies and what they have in common and your work on them, whether you feel that that contributes to a reinvention of motherhood or whether you think that's more universal themes that are being explored.
Well, maybe not motherhood. It might be a reveal in a way that, you know, mothers, I mean, you know, we all know the term mother bear. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it didn't exist in the world. It's just bringing it onto the screen and to really see a mother going as far as she can to protect her child. I mean, Sarah Connor is not a good mother. She's a mother that did what she had to do, but in terms of the classical ideal of mother, which is nurturing, loving, I mean, she'd rather slap her son for, you know, for endangering himself than love him and shroud him in all of that false comfort. So I think in that way it is universal because a mother is a mother. And, you know, sometimes you're doing the right thing for your child, but it still doesn't make you a good mother, you know, or the fully blooded mother that has the love as well. And I think Sarah Connor's love was kind of shut down quick because of what she knew was coming. I don't know if that answers your question, but...
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right, guys, unfortunately, we have a schedule to keep. This has to be the last question. My apologies for everyone behind this gentleman here, but unfortunately, we have a schedule. We gotta... This better be a damn good
I know, thank you. That's a lot of pressure.
All right.
Hi, sorry.
Sorry, it was all about the dog.
Is the dog okay? Okay.
He's great.
Awesome. The same year that the original Terminator came out, a movie came out that I've always really enjoyed since I was probably too young to watch it. It's a little new movie called Children of the Corn. And my question is I know that was very early in your career, and I know from what I've read, a lot of actors and actresses are very nervous to take on horror roles as their first kind of come-out role. My question to you is, were you reticent to take that role, and once you took it and went through the process, did you find it rewarding?
It was kind of the opposite. When you're a young actor, maybe more so these days they will build careers, do you know what I mean? Like very carefully choose. But basically, new actors are starving. You know, we're starving, not just for work, but for actual money and rent money. And I mean, you wouldn't believe how I lived in New York training, you know, with rats and robbers. And so you don't have the luxury of saying, nah, that's not good enough for me. You know, very few of us have that kind of a luxury. And I was a Stephen King fan, so I was happy about that film. But as we went along, I would show up and I would say, wait a minute, isn't the grass supposed to be, I mean, isn't the corn supposed to be turned black in the scene? They were like, yeah, we couldn't afford that, so we're not doing it. And like every good thing that was in the book that started out in the script was disappeared on the day that I went to shoot it. And I was like, oh my God, this is a career ender and I've just begun my career. I mean, I actually was like worried. I remember just being so worried because, you know, you've got these producers and it's just classic Hollywood where I go, why are you putting me back in the car at the end of this? After all we've been through, I'm gonna look stupid. He goes, no, we want the audience to think you're stupid. And you're like, you know, it's real hard to process all of that stuff when your own producer is saying, no, we want the audience to think you're stupid. Which is so far against what, you know, the self-important thing that we're working on. So I really did think that might be like a career ender for me. And then you realize that you're gonna get through it, get to do another movie someday.
Well, you still have weirdos like me who love watching it even to this day. So,
really?
Yeah.
I don't get that movie.
Well, thank you for all that you do.
You're welcome.
And we also would like to thank Linda Hamilton, Tampa Bay Comic-Con. We'd like to personally thank Linda Hamilton for coming to Florida. The beautiful, lovely, fantabulous Linda Hamilton!
I'm so embarrassed, but thank you.
Room, so everyone's going to exit out so they can get the next group in. We thank you so much. That's the end of the panel for the weekend for me. I'll see you guys soon somewhere.